So, after all those disabled people who were protesting all over the place in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, we finally got a law, Disability Discrimination Act, in the UK in 1995, but there wasn't anything around the whole world. So we kept pushing the United Nations, which is meant to be where all the countries of the world come together, to have a convention on the rights of disabled people. And it took 25 years from when we first argued that they had it. By 2006, it was agreed. Now, I was very lucky. I was chosen by all the disabled people in the UK to go and argue the case at the United Nations. And that's important because this convention is the first convention in history that is actually made by the people it's about. If you think about the Women's Convention, do you think all women made that? You're shaking your head. Who do you think made it mainly?
Probably men.
Probably men, and you'd be right. What about the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which came in 1989, before this? Do you think a lot of children went to New York to make the Convention on the Rights of the Child? A lot of adults made it. So this was the first one where people who actually experienced the problems of having, being a disabled person in a disabling society where there are all these barriers, we were all there. And it was hard work because we had 2 3-hour sessions of the delegates from all the countries of the world, and we were allowed to speak in one type of session and not in another, and we had to put a leaflet in every morning about what they were going to discuss, so we gave them an idea about what they should be putting into the convention. So really, it was written by disabled people, it wasn't written by the politicians who went to New York. And what we say, the slogan for this convention is, nothing about us without us. What do you think that means? Nothing about us without us. Yeah.
You can't decide people's rights without having those people actually there to help decide the rights.
Exactly. So it's a rights-based approach. So about this building, nothing about us. Well, there are going to be disabled people using this building. They decided there would be because they made it partly accessible. The next bit they didn't do, which was to get disabled people around the table and say, well, here's our plan, is this going to work? No, it's not. Let's cross this out, put this in. That's how it should happen. And the same is true in what we learn in the lessons, you know. Where is disability in the lessons that you have throughout the curriculum? Is it there a lot or not?
The chemistry and the biology portion, the desks quite high in some of them.
Right, so it's not there in the infrastructure of the building. What you can have is desks that go up and down. They're not that expensive, and once they're put in, they'll last for 30 or 40 years. You can have sinks that go up and down. You can have all sorts of things. So it's having those adaptations. So consulting with people. So the purpose of this convention is protection of our rights, full and equal enjoyment of these rights, and the right to dignity and to be ourselves. So the principles of this convention, and then we can bring that board out and do that. So that's the first paragraph. I just talked about that. The general principles, the idea of respect and dignity and freedom of disabled people and disabled children, to not be discriminated against, to participate, to be included, to full equality and to accessibility. What do we mean by accessibility? Yeah.
Making things accessible for all.
Right. So we think about what you were doing. You were talking about physical barriers to people with physical impairments, crutches, walking sticks, wheelchairs. You were talking about sensory impairment. What were most of the barriers that people you came across? They weren't the same as this table, were they? What were the barriers that you were coming across?
Some people wouldn't be able to, like, for example, if you were going shopping, if you were blind, you wouldn't be able to see what you're buying,
Right.
and you wouldn't be able to see the price, what brand it was,
Exactly.
or check the packaging or anything.
And in fact, we could have had some access to this table. People with learning difficulties, for instance, may not be able to read a menu. So what do we have on the menu instead of just type? How could we get around that for access? Let's see if someone on this table has the answer. For a menu, you go to a menu and you have difficulty with learning, so maybe you're not reading as fast as other people. How would it be easier for you to see what was on the menu? Yeah.
If they had the sign language within the menu.
They could have sign language, or simpler, they could just take a photograph of the different dishes that they offer, couldn't they? And they could print, next to the writing, they could print a picture of the dish. Wouldn't that be easier for a lot of people to just see what that dish is? Yeah, I'm a king burger with this and chips, I'll point to that. Simple. You don't have to read it. So it's information is a barrier, and lack of the right information, it means it's inaccessible. So we've got it in the built environment, we've got it in information, and we've got it in information that people need in order to make decisions in their lives. So those are the principles, and then the government must review and revise these laws. They must promote access for all in the design of goods. Access for all in the design of goods, that's universal design, services and facilities. Develop policies and actions to implement this treaty and to consult with disabled people in doing so. Those are the principles. So we're not going to go, I will give you your own copy of the convention to take away with you, to have either as an ally of disabled people or as a disabled person yourself. Can we bring that out the front here? And I'm going to give you, now these are just 9 of the articles in the convention, right? There are 30. So I'm going to just concentrate on them. Article 6, full and equal rights for disabled women and girls. Why did they have a special thing for women and girls, do you think?
Because we've been discriminated against throughout history.
Yeah, and as a disabled woman, you're getting a double hit. You're getting disabled, discrimination because you're disabled, and discrimination because you're women. And when those two interact, it creates new problems. So there's a special one for that. Disabled children to enjoy full and fundamental rights like other children. Why is there one for children, do you think?
Because maybe at a young age they might feel like
They need to know their rights, they need to get what everyone else is getting.
yeah.
Yeah. Raising awareness, combating stereotypes. You don't like stereotypes. Promoting capabilities, contribution, and promoting that disabled people, as I did at the beginning, that disabled people aren't just sitting doing nothing. They can get on and do all sorts of things with their life. So promoting that idea, raising awareness, is number 8. Number 9, accessibility. So disabled people, we talked about accessibility. So that's there as a right. Disabled children and adults should be protected from violence and abuse. Do you think disabled people get more violence and abuse or less than other people? What do we think over here? More or less abuse and violence, do you think? I think more. In fact, the statistics on bullying in schools throughout the UK is that disabled kids, on average, are bullied twice as much as other kids. So they're getting more, aren't they? Okay. So, protection for that. Protection from violence, Article 16. Disabled children and adults should enjoy freedom and personal mobility. So whatever you need to get around, or for freedom, there should be access to that. Right to education. You should not be excluded from school or college because of your impairment. So that's Article 24. And disabled people have the right to participate in political life, if you want to do vote or run for parliament or local council. Disabled people have a right to participate in leisure, sport, culture. All right, we've got to give the cards out. I'm going to give 3